Wow. That line, they carried all they could bear and then some. That right there from Tim O'Brien, it just hits you, doesn't it? It perfectly captures what a soldier in Vietnam went through. And it's not just about, physical strength. It's about pushing the absolute limits of what a person can handle.
So that's what we're going to dive into today. Tim O'Brien's masterpiece, The Things They Carried. We're going to deconstruct how he takes this really simple idea, a soldier's backpack, and uses it to unpack these huge concepts like war, memory, and even truth itself.
Right away, O'Brien just throws us into the language of the war, to hump it. It means to carry something, sure, but the word itself, it implies so much more than just a physical load. This is the world we're stepping into, a place where every single word is just heavy. Okay, so to really get a handle on those intangible burdens, we've got to start with the real stuff, the tangible. Let's break down the literal, measurable weight these guys were hauling around every single day. All right, let's start building the load. First up, the standard issue steel helmet. That's 5 pounds right off the bat, just to protect your head. Okay, now add the steel-centered flak jacket. That's another 6.7 pounds. And O'Brien makes a point to say that on those hot, humid days, it felt like a whole lot more. And get this, we haven't even gotten to the ammunition yet. A rifleman could be carrying 12, maybe 20 magazines. That alone is over 20 pounds. Can you feel that weight just piling on? Then you've got all the necessities, the P38 can openers, heat tabs, pocket knives, bug spray, sea rations, a couple canteens of water, all that boring everyday stuff. That's another 15 to 20 pounds. I mean, we're talking about a staggering amount of weight here, and we haven't even touched on the personal gear yet. And this is where it gets really interesting, because this is how every soldier's burden was different. You had Henry Dobbins, a big guy, so he carried extra food. Dave Jensen, he was all about hygiene, so he had a toothbrush and floss. And Ted Lavender, he was terrified, so he carried tranquilizers. Kiowa, a devout Baptist, carried his New Testament. You see, what they carried was basically a map of who they were, what they needed, and what they were afraid of. But here's the thing. All that gear, all that physical weight, that was just the start. The heaviest things they carried, you couldn't weigh them on a scale. And this is where the story really opens up. So we meet First Lieutenant Jimmy Cross. And what does he carry? He carries letters from a girl back home named Martha. Physically, they weigh maybe 10 ounces. Nothing. But emotionally, man, the weight is just massive. They're his connection to a whole other world, a world without war. But that distraction, it's about to have some pretty devastating consequences. And you start to see how every single physical thing had this intangible twin. I mean, the M16 rifle, that's 8.2 pounds of steel. But the responsibility for his men's lives, that's so much heavier. The sea rations were a pain to carry, sure, but what about the constant nagging fear that you couldn't measure? As O'Brien puts it, they carried all the emotional baggage of men who might die. And then we see the cost. While Lieutenant Cross is lost in his thoughts, daydreaming about Martha, Ted Lavender gets shot. Just like that. The description is so brutal, so matter-of-fact. 1 minute he's there, the next, boom, down. Kiowa, who saw it happen, said it was just like watching a rock fall. And in an instant, Lavender goes from carrying all that weight to becoming the ultimate weight, dead weight. And right then and there, for Lieutenant Cross, the weight of those letters vanishes, and it's replaced by something infinitely heavier, guilt. He blames himself. He was thinking about Martha, not his men, and now one of them is dead. And that guilt, O'Brien says, is something he would carry for the rest of his life, like a stone in his stomach. This whole tragic event, it's really a jumping-off point for O'Brien to get into his main idea about storytelling. He asks this question: what actually makes a war story true? And let me tell you, the answer is probably not what you're expecting. So O'Brien just completely throws our expectations out the window. A true war story, he says, is never moral. It doesn't teach you a lesson. In fact, if you finish a war story and you feel good or uplifted, you've been lied to. The real truth of war, he says, is ugly. You know that old saying, war is hell? O'Brien says, yeah, okay, but that's not even the half of it. It's hell for sure, but it's also mystery and terror. It's adventure and courage. It's even got moments of holiness and love. A true war story has to be able to hold all of those contradictions at the exact same time. So what does that mean? It means what actually, factually happened isn't the most important thing. The real truth is in the subjective experience. It's the surreal stuff, the crazy stuff that you think couldn't possibly be true. That's the real story. It's all about capturing how it felt, not just listing the facts. Okay, so what does a story like that even look like in practice? Well, O'Brien doesn't just tell us, he shows us with these incredibly haunting examples. Take the story of Rot Kiley. His best friend Kurt Lemon is killed. So what does Rot do? He finds a baby water buffalo. And he doesn't just kill it, he hurts it. Slowly, methodically. He shoots off its ear, a leg, its nose. It's just this horrific, senseless act. And the whole platoon just watches. And in that awful moment, they see something true about grief and pain. It's profound because it's so ugly and makes no sense. Or how about this one? After Kurt Lemon dies, they have to clean up the remains from a tree. And while they're doing this, Dave Jensen starts singing the song Lemon Tree. Can you imagine? It's so grotesque, but it's also how they coped. It's that dark, twisted humor that just perfectly captures the moral chaos of it all. And it's that detail, that specific, awful moment that wakes the narrator up 20 years later. And this is where it all leads. This is the big reveal. After all the lists of gear, all the violence, all the chaos, O'Brien says, you know what? A true war story is never really about war. It's about love. It's about memory. It's about sorrow. It's about sisters who don't write back and people who just don't listen. It's about all the human stuff that war strips down to its absolute core. So that leaves us with this final question to chew on. If a true war story isn't actually about war, then what is it about? If these stories are bigger than just Vietnam, what are they really carrying? And maybe more importantly, what truths are they trying to help us understand about ourselves?